My wife and stepdaughter emotionally tortured my son for 8 years while I was working. I installed hidden cameras and recorded all the abuse. The judge was left speechless when he saw the videos, and my ex lost absolutely everything. I'm 37 years old. I work as an operations manager at a logistics company, and 6 months ago my life took such a brutal turn that there are still days when I wake up thinking it was all a nightmare. But it wasn't. I discovered that my wife and stepdaughter had been, literally for years, emotionally torturing my 10-year-old son while I worked like an idiot trying to keep afloat. A family that was basically broken from the start. And the worst part, what really kills me inside, is that I saw it but didn't want to see it. You know what I mean? The signs were there the whole time. But I guess it's easier to convince yourself that everything's fine when the alternative is admitting that your marriage is a lie and that you've failed as a father. Let me backtrack a bit, because this story doesn't start 6 months ago. It starts like 10 years ago when Jackson's mom died in a car accident. Jackson was 2 years old. I was 27, and honestly, I don't know how I survived that period. My wife, Catherine was her name, was my entire world, and suddenly she was gone and I was left alone with a small child who asked about his mom every day. I worked double shifts to pay the bills and the babysitter. I cried in the bathroom at work. I'd come home and pretend everything was fine so Jackson wouldn't see me destroyed. Those were horrible years, like the worst years of my life up to that point, and when I met Lauren, I thought something good was finally happening to me. Lauren came into my life at a parent-teacher meeting at the preschool where Jackson and Olivia, her daughter, were in the same class. She was also a single mother. Olivia's dad had basically disappeared when the girl was 1 year old. And we connected over that, about how hard it is to raise a child alone. She was attractive, seemed to have everything under control. Olivia was a well-behaved girl when she was around me, and after dating for a year we decided to get married. Jackson was 4, Olivia was 5, and I honestly believed we were forming a nice family, like those blended families you see in movies where everyone gets along and is happy. The first few months were good, or so it seemed to me. Lauren moved into my house with Olivia because I was the one with the bigger place and the more stable job. I made good money. She worked part-time at a department store, but her salary was more symbolic than anything else, so basically, I became the main provider for the family. It didn't bother me, honestly, because I felt like I was doing something good, giving Jackson a mother and a sister, building something new after so much loss. But looking back, I should have seen it coming from the beginning. The little things that didn't add up, like for example that Lauren never hugged Jackson the way she hugged Olivia, or that when Jackson wanted to show her a drawing he'd made at school, she barely looked at it and said, "Oh, how nice, honey," but when Olivia did the same thing, she gushed with praise and stuck the drawing on the fridge. Or that at dinners, she always served Olivia first, and the bigger portions, and Jackson ended up with whatever was left. I noticed it. Of course I noticed it. But I told myself it was normal, that Lauren obviously had a stronger connection with her own daughter, that eventually she'd learn to love Jackson too, that they just needed time. Time passed. 8 years in total we were married. And in those 8 years, the situation kept getting worse so gradually that it was like that metaphor about the frog in boiling water, right? That if you put a frog in hot water, it jumps out immediately. But if you put it in cold water and gradually turn up the temperature, the frog doesn't notice until it's too late. That was me. The idiot frog who didn't realize his son was being emotionally destroyed in his own home. Jackson is an amazing kid. Quiet, sensitive. He loves to draw and build things with Legos. He's one of those kids who stays for hours, concentrating on his projects. He was never problematic, never gave trouble, always did his homework without anyone telling him to, got good grades, was kind to everyone. But over time, I started noticing he was becoming quieter, more withdrawn, spending more and more time alone in his room. When I asked him if he was okay, he always said yes. And I, like the idiot I was, believed him because it was more comfortable to believe him than to investigate further. Lauren, on the other hand, became increasingly cold toward me too. We barely had sex. Like 3 or 4 times a year, maybe. There was always an excuse. I'm tired. I have a headache. Olivia might hear us. She spent all her time with Olivia, spoiled her in everything. If Olivia wanted something, Lauren pressured me to buy it for her, and Olivia kept getting more and more spoiled and demanding. By 11, she was already an unbearable child, honestly, always demanding attention, always complaining if she wasn't the center of the state's universe. But Lauren never corrected her, never set boundaries. The breaking point came at Olivia's birthday party about 7 months ago. Olivia was turning 11, and Lauren had organized this huge party at the house. She'd hired an entertainer. There were like 30 kids invited, decorations everywhere, a table full of food, and a huge 3-tier cake. I had paid for everything, obviously, like always, and it must have cost easily like $1,500 or more. Jackson had been helping all morning putting up decorations. He'd inflated balloons, arranged the chairs, done everything they asked without complaining. The moment comes for the family photo, you know? That photo you typically take at birthdays with the whole family around the birthday person. Lauren organized everyone. Put Olivia in the center in front of the cake, positioned herself next to Olivia, and indicated I should stand on the other side. Jackson was standing there waiting to be told where to stand, and Lauren literally ignored him. She told the photographer, who was the dad of one of Olivia's friends, to take the photo, and Jackson was still standing there, like waiting. I said, "Jackson, come here with us." And Lauren said very casually, "It's just that I want a photo of just the family first, then we'll take others." I froze. Just the family? Jackson wasn't family? I saw my son's face when he heard that, and my heart broke into 1,000 pieces. He didn't cry, didn't say anything, just turned around and went to his room. And I exploded. Right there, in front of all the guests, I said to Lauren, what the hell was she doing? That Jackson was her stepson. How dare she exclude him like that? And she got defensive, saying I was exaggerating, that she just wanted a special photo with Olivia, that Jackson could be in the other photos. Olivia started crying because we were ruining her party. Lauren blamed me for making a scene, and I ended up leaving with Jackson to his room while the party continued, without us. That night, Jackson fell asleep, crying in my lap while I stroked his hair, and told him I was sorry, that I loved him, that he was the most important thing to me. And there I made a decision. A decision many might criticize, but honestly it was the best thing I could have done. I decided to install hidden security cameras in the house. I didn't tell anyone. I just bought them online. They were those small cameras that look like phone chargers or smoke detectors, and I installed them in the living room, in the kitchen, in the hallway, everywhere, except the bathrooms and bedrooms, obviously because I'm not sick. My plan was to record what happened when I wasn't home, because I was starting to suspect things were much worse than what I'd seen. And I was right. God, I was so right that I feel like throwing up every time I think about it. For 2 weeks, I left the cameras recording all day while I was at work. I'd come home, download the videos to my laptop, and lock myself in my office to review them. What I saw in those videos destroyed me. I saw Olivia mocking Jackson constantly, calling him a loser, telling him nobody loved him, that his mom had died because she didn't want to be with him. Horrible things no child should say to another. And Lauren there present, hearing everything, and she did nothing. Or worse, she laughed. I saw Lauren serving Jackson cold food while giving Olivia hot, freshly made food. I saw Lauren telling Jackson to stop making noise with his Legos because he was bothering Olivia. But when Olivia screamed watching videos on her tablet at full volume, Lauren said nothing. But the worst part, what really made me lose my mind, was an incident that happened one afternoon when I was in a meeting that ran longer than normal. Olivia spilled juice on the living room couch, and Lauren, instead of using paper towels or normal rags, grabbed something from Jackson's bedroom. When I realized what it was, I almost broke the laptop from fury. It was Jackson's favorite hoodie, a light blue hoodie that had been his mom's, Catherine's, the only piece of clothing we'd kept for Jackson, and Lauren used it as a rag to clean the spilled juice from the couch. Jackson came home from school, saw his hoodie all stained and wet thrown in the kitchen, and started crying, desperately asking what had happened. Lauren told him very calmly that it had been an accident, that Olivia had spilled something and she'd grabbed the first thing she found, that it wasn't a big deal, that it was just an old hoodie. Jackson yelled at her, crying that that was his mom's hoodie, the only thing he had from her. And Lauren responded that his mom was dead and that a dirty hoodie wasn't going to bring her back. To stop being so dramatic, Olivia laughed. She laughed while my son cried inconsolably, hugging a ruined hoodie that was his only tangible link to his dead mother. I watched that video at 11 at night after everyone had gone to sleep, and I had to bite my fist to keep from screaming from the rage I felt. I downloaded all the videos, saved them on 3 different USB drives and in the cloud, and waited until the next day, which was Saturday, to confront Lauren. I told her we needed to talk, sent the kids to their rooms, and took out my laptop. I told her I'd installed cameras, and I saw how her face went pale immediately because she knew. She knew perfectly well she'd done horrible things. I showed her the videos, one by one, all the moments of abuse I'd captured in 2 weeks. At first, she tried to justify herself, say I was misinterpreting things, that I was taking everything out of context. But when we got to the video of the hoodie, she went quiet because there was no way to justify that. There just wasn't. I asked her how she could have done that to a child, to my son, for years, and she finally exploded and let out everything she really thought. She told me that Jackson had always been a burden, that she'd hoped that over time I'd get over it and focus on forming a real family with her and Olivia. That she was tired of me spending money on Jackson when Olivia also needed things. That it wasn't her fault that Jackson's mom had died and that she didn't have to love a child who wasn't hers. She said she'd married me for financial stability, basically admitted she only saw me as a provider, and that if I'd been a less obsessed father with Jackson, things would have worked out. I didn't yell, didn't insult her. I simply told her she had exactly 1 hour to pack her things and Olivia's and get out of my house. She became hysterical, started screaming that this was her house too, that I couldn't kick her out just like that she had rights. I told her the house was in my name, that I'd bought it before meeting her, that she had no rights over the property, and that if she didn't leave in an hour, I'd call the police and show them the videos of her abuse toward a minor. That shut her up pretty quickly. Olivia heard the screaming and came down crying, asking what was happening. Lauren told her I was kicking them out because I was a terrible man, and I honestly didn't have the energy to fight with an 11-year-old girl. I just told them to pack, and they did. Lauren called her sister, who lives like 40 minutes from here, and her sister came to pick them up. Jackson stayed in his room the whole time. I think he heard everything, but I didn't want to traumatize him more by asking him to come out. That same week, I hired the best divorce lawyer I could afford and filed. Lauren also hired a lawyer and started fighting for everything. She wanted half the value of the house, wanted alimony because she claimed she'd sacrificed her career to care for the family. A huge lie considering she only worked part-time when I met her and never tried to advance professionally. Wanted me to keep paying Olivia's expenses even though she wasn't my biological daughter. Her lawyer painted this whole picture of her as a devoted mother and wife who'd been surprisingly kicked out of her home by a cruel husband. My lawyer presented the videos. All the videos, edited into a 40-minute compilation of the worst moments, including the hoodie incident in high definition with clear audio. Lauren's lawyer tried to argue that the hidden cameras were illegal, but my lawyer demonstrated that in our state, it's completely legal to record in your own property, in common areas, as long as they're not bathrooms or bedrooms where there's an expectation of privacy. The videos were admissible evidence and completely legal. The judge watched the videos and, I'm not gonna lie, it was satisfying to see the expression on his face when he got to the hoodie video. He asked Lauren directly if she'd used a garment that belonged to Jackson's deceased mother to clean up a spill, and Lauren tried to explain it had been a mistake, that she didn't know it was important, but the judge interrupted her and told her he'd seen enough. He ruled that the house remained completely in my name, that Lauren would receive not a penny of alimony because there was clear evidence that the marriage had dissolved due to her abusive behavior, and that any additional financial claims were dismissed. Lauren left the court crying, her lawyer clearly upset because he'd probably promised her she'd win something from the case, and I left feeling like I could finally breathe after months of tension. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago. Jackson turned 10, 2 months ago. And since Lauren left, I've seen such a big change in my son that it makes me cry with happiness and guilt at the same time. Jackson is smiling more. He's talking more. His teachers have told me he's participating more in class. He's making more friends. I started taking him to therapy with a child psychologist specialized in family trauma, and she's told me Jackson is processing things very well for his age, that he's resilient, but that he's going to need time and ongoing support. I'm also in therapy because I have to process my own guilt about not having protected my son before. about having allowed that situation to continue for so many years. Lauren is still living with her sister, as far as I know, because the part-time job at the department store isn't enough for her to rent a decent place for her and Olivia. She's tried to contact me several times, first angry, threatening to sue me again, then desperate, saying she made mistakes but loves me and wants us to try again, then begging me to at least give her financial help because she's struggling. I have her blocked everywhere. My lawyer handles any necessary communication, and honestly, I have no interest in knowing how she is or what she's doing. Last week, Jackson asked me if Lauren was going to come back someday. I told him the truth. That no, that she wasn't good for us, that she made very serious mistakes that hurt our family a lot, and that we were better off this way, just the two of us. He thought about it for a moment, like processing it, and then he told me that was okay, that he was happy here with me anyway. He hugged me and said, "I love you, Dad. Thank you for taking care of me," and I had to go to the bathroom afterward to cry because I didn't want him to see me fall apart. I don't know if I did everything right. I probably took too long to act. I probably should have seen the signs earlier. I probably failed Jackson in many ways during those 8 years. But what I do know is that now I'm doing the right thing. I'm prioritizing my son over everything else. I'm building a life where he feels safe and loved and valued. I sold Catherine's hoodie that Lauren had ruined to a company that restores damaged textiles, and they managed to save it. It's in a frame now, hanging on the wall of Jackson's room, and he looks at it every night before going to sleep. Do I regret marrying Lauren? All the time. Do I regret installing those cameras? Not for a second. Those cameras. I gave me the evidence I needed to protect my son and get out of a situation that was destroying both of us. And if anyone tells me that invading Lauren's privacy was wrong, I'd tell them that protecting my son from systematic emotional abuse was more right. The cameras not only helped me in the divorce, they opened my eyes to a reality I'd been denying for years, because it was more comfortable to pretend everything was fine than to admit I'd brought into my home someone who hated my son. Jackson and I are fine now, not perfect, because we're still healing, but fine. We cook together on weekends, we watch movies on Friday nights, we build giant Lego projects that take up the entire dining room table, and he shows me his drawings and I stick them all on the fridge. A month ago, he told me he wanted to put a photo of his mom, Catherine, in the living room, something he'd never asked for before, because I think Lauren made him feel guilty for remembering her. And now there's a beautiful photo of Catherine on the shelf where we can both see it every day. I have no plans to remarry soon, maybe never, because Jackson is my absolute priority, and I'm not going to bring anyone into our lives unless I'm completely sure they're going to love my son as much as I do. And if that means I'm going to be alone the rest of my life, that's okay, because being alone with Jackson is 1,000 times better than being in a marriage where my son suffers. I learned that lesson the most painful way possible, but I learned it, and I'm never going to forget it.